So Mega Man is a pretty amazing franchise of games, right? It's my personal favorite, and I've played pretty much the entire classic series to completion, barring Mega Man 11. But something that I thought about over and over the past few weeks is something that most people don't really think for long periods of time. The robot masters you fight are quite literally bosses, and the normal enemies fought within a stage are their employees. Are the bosses actually good to their workers? Before anyone really needs to ask, yes, I'm ripping off Unraveled by Brian David Gilbert, and specifically his video about whether or not the Dark Souls bosses are technically good bosses in a business sense. The biggest difference between this video and that one is that we have different criteria for what makes a boss good in the world of Mega Man. Let's say Dr. Wily is the CEO of a large company. Let's call it the Monsteropolis Corporation. He doesn't have to interact with any of his branches after establishing them. He's not going to be counted in the discussion of bosses. The Robot Masters all control one branch of Monsteropolis, and they have certain people hired in those branches to do business things. These branches are set in locations across the globe, and sometimes space. Our criteria are as follows. 1. What are the people who work in a branch like? Do they seem happy to be of assistance in murdering a small robot boy? Or can they really not care any less and just want to go home? 2. Is the environment to an employee's benefit? Do these employees fit in these environments? Can they be swapped out with, say, a Goomba from Donkey Kong or a Waddle Dee from Metroid? Or do they belong to this environment? Or even worse, do they not belong in this environment and suffer because of it? 3. Are the mini-bosses or higher-ups taking responsibility into their own metallic hands and trying to get rid of our blue bomber with their large, imposing size and power? 4. Do the bosses treat their workers with respect? To quantify the question of are they respectful to their employees, we'll be going into the Mega Man knowledge base to view individual profiles for each robot master, where we can see how they act in terms of personality. This won't be a deciding factor about whether or not they're good bosses, but it's fun to think about. Now obviously, we're only counting robot masters, not the Doc Robots of Mega Man 3, not the dumb ancillary bosses from the Wily Fortress or Fortress of some other guy in that game who might be the villain, but we all know it's Wily. And most importantly of all, we're only going to be counting the first 11 games of the classic series as well as Mega Man and Base. We're not counting Mega Man Powered Up because it's a reboot that, while good, didn't do enough to change things up other than make everything cute and give us 2 more robot masters. Let's begin. Mega Man 1 is such a quaint, almost small little game compared to the others coming later. Wily opens up 6 branches of Monsteropolis compared to the 8 he opens up in each subsequent game, and the variety of workers in each location is much smaller. For instance, we go to Cutman's location and it's a simple factory with bladers flying about to get in your way, Komodomas also getting in your way, adhering Susies who also get in your way, flying shells who, despite doing the bare minimum, are quite effective, a big guy who seems like a real go-getter but is easily fooled, and something called the Super Cutter, but it doesn't seem to be an actual enemy. It seems more like a bunch of IT guys in a room hear you outside and just start throwing shit at you to make you go away. But on that note, it doesn't seem like Cutman is a good boss. He's very stubborn and he doesn't listen to others, so he doesn't hear the complaints of his employees who want to work someplace else. As a result, they all just seem bored and going through the motions. Even the Flying Shell, the most aggravating enemy in the stage, who can seemingly hit you from everywhere. He just flies in, shoots, flies in more, shoots, then leaves. The only real worker who seems to be happy working is Big Guy. I think he's a kiss ass. Also, an addendum to the rules, mounted guns, weapons, and hazards that go through one motion back and forth don't count as employees. That would be like saying the metal detector at an airport is a worker. It may do its job, it may have a nickname, it may come to your nephew's bar mitzvah, but you don't pay it. Cutman has quite a few turrets as employees, which means he doesn't fully trust his own workers to do the job, and he won't listen to any complaints about the fact that the factory seems like a random ass location for the facility, and no one except dear, sweet adhering Susie seems to fit in. Bad boss. Electroman, however, has it way worse. His location is a power plant. He is, on the outset, a pretty good boss who is smart, competent, and very responsible with a fun little quirk of disliking rubber. But then you don't file a report on time and you see this good boss isn't so good, with him being egocentric, conceited, and more than a little sadistic. This is incredibly evident with his stage being incredibly tall and difficult to navigate through. However, his employees don't think so. He's employed another big guy, the returning Kamodoma, and watchers. The big guy has his own little area waiting for our blue hero, while the Kamodoma are sitting at the very top ready to get in your way once again. The watchers are actually very enthusiastic about their job of murdering and will take 2 shots at you before escaping, hoping to fight another day. These guys fit much better at this location, but Elecman is still a prick. He's an okay boss. Iceman may seem like his associate Elecman with being self-centered, but it's really because he's a performer who loves playing to the crowds. He still, however, cares deeply about his friends and employees. His location is tropical, which is perfect for him and those he employed. We've got the returning favorites of Adhering Susie and Big Eye, but there are some very fresh faces in the form of Footholders, Crazy Raisies, and Pepe. The stage itself is difficult and rough to navigate through with the bottomless pits and disappearing blocks, but none of the workers really need to worry because the majority of them can just fly. Crazy Raisy can just pop off his legs and fly over everything. Adhering Susies and Big Eye don't have that luxury, but they're put far away from any kind of danger. Iceman is a good boss. Fireman is hot-blooded, charismatic, and a little bit of a hothead, yet he's still a pretty cool guy who enjoys camping in the summer, but also sees himself as a champion of justice ready to hunt down Mega Man, you know, whenever he decides to show up. His facility, however, is less heroic and more an actual garbage fire, seeing as he's a waste disposal robot. He's only got 2 actual kinds of employees working for him, chain keys and killer bombs. The Chanky strikes me as someone who's hanging out in the break room for most of their time, talking to friends and playing on their Switch before it's time to clock back in, and then go about their job with gusto. Killer bombs almost seem like they're there to get in the way, but you shoot one and they explode, meaning that this guy knows what he's in for and prepared himself. Despite this stage being difficult to get through and this one part can seriously fuck off, it's safe to say that Fireman is a good boss. Bomb Man is an interesting case because he's not really an adult like the other first generation Robot Masters. He's a teenager. As such, he's immature, likes wasting money, is a daredevil, blows things up on his own accord, and has an affinity for bowling. His branch is smack dab in the middle of a futuristic city, which seems incredibly dangerous to humans considering he's an explosion man. He's hired quite the bevy of employees. We've got some more Adhering Susies, Komodomas, killer bombs, and flying shells. But new to this scene is the absolute pinnacle of employees, the dictionary definition of employee of the month. The one, the only Sniper Joe. This fucking dude is the coolest. He's one of the very few enemies in Mega Man who returns for just about every single game, and he deserves it. He's only got one mission, get in your way and kill you, and he does it all with a cool shield and a simple blaster. While every other enemy in the stage just goes through the motions, Sniper Joe is earning that bonus and then some. Bomb Man may not be running a tight ship, and most of his employees are borrowed from his older brothers, but he spent the prettiest penny on Sniper Joe, and it makes him at least a little bit cool. He's an okay boss. Gutsman is flat out Dr. Wily's favorite robot master, and it's very evident to see why. He's very similar to a typical construction foreman. While he can be hot-tempered, impatient, and unreasonable, he is passionate about his line of work, and is more intelligent than his appearance and mannerisms would initially suggest, and cares deeply for the well-being of his colleagues when he's on the job and his robotic brothers, acting as some sort of older brother to the latter. He also seems to have a genuine sense of humor, and seems to know his brother's behavior very well. Gutsman enjoys karaoke and is good friends with Stone Man, but he also doesn't like to see any arguments from his workers or his brothers, or even get into one. He made sure he hired only the best of the best to his facility, which is located right in a mountain near a mine. He's got bladers, a big guy, and some new faces, a pickaxe man and the Mets. These 4 different types of employees do their job incredibly well, especially the Mets. They seem so simple and shy as they're new recruits, but they're absolutely the men for the job. There's a reason why when people think of Mega Man, one of the lasting images is that of a small robot with a hard hat, who doesn't do much but does what they do almost better than anyone. For being the friendliest yet hardest working boss and only hiring those he trusts, Gutsman is not only a good boss, he's the best boss. In Mega Man 2, Wily made the Monsteropolis Corporation's mission statement something a little different. Kill Mega Man. Because of this, he had to open up 8 different branches after the first 6 had to be shut down. These Robot Masters were designed to kill Mega Man first, run a successful business second, but they should still be businessmen at the end of the day. Metal Man is an interesting case. He's frail, brittle, almost thin-skinned, and can't take what he dishes out. But he's still dry-witted, sarcastic, and possibly untrustworthy, yet he's quick to work on whatever project he's given. Like murder. His facility is a factory that may or may not be falling apart, which is at least in keeping with the company motto. He's hired Blockies, Pierrobots, and Springers. Springers are similar to Gabioals in the last game and future games, but I'm counting Springers because they have an actual face and mode of attack that isn't being a Roomba but dangerous. The Blocky seems a little out of it, like he came out of a nap, and because of that, he's easily dispatched in 2 hits or less. Pierrobots, on the other hand, are very gung-ho about trying to kill Mega Man and are absolutely loving their new job. Metal Man clearly used some funds given to him by head honcho Wily to hire some guys who might not be totally fit to do their job. He's an okay boss. Flashman is also quite odd. He's a whiner and loves complaining, but he still has a heart of gold. Though he's still prone to using his time stopper to play pranks, get some sick photos, and take longer baths. He's hired the returning Blockies, but has a fresh face in the form of Shopman, and it seems like he used his budget wisely, seeing as he created this facility that's seemingly a crystal palace, and was able to hire some Sniper Joes with giant ride armors. Flashman knows exactly what he's doing. He's hired a new guy who needs the experience, placed the bored guy in places that makes him difficult to dispatch, and has quite a few of the experienced guys around the place, now more well equipped than ever before. Flashman is a good boss. Hey, remember Birder from Dragon Ball Z, that guy who always called himself the fastest in the universe? Well, Quickman is a lot like that, and also Sonic the Hedgehog. He's quick to act, making impulsive decisions, likes illegal car races like Fast and the Furious 1, and has a secret rivalry going on with Turbo Man, who we'll discuss later. He expects all of his workers to be as fast as him, which is why he decided to put his facility in the absolute worst fucking place on earth to be it! Yeah, it's just a normal building, but it's got quite a few gimmicks that if you're not lucky, you're instantly vaporized, whether you're Mega Man or a poor underling. Speaking of which, he's hired Chankys as well as a Chanky maker. They're only there presumably because the power goes off every so often due to the fact that he's using it all on those giant fucking fuck off lasers that rip you to shreds! He's also hired Springers and Sniper Armors, so maybe that's why the enemy variety is quite lacking. Quick Man, it looks like, is taking the challenge of killing the poor blue boy a little too seriously, and because of that, he's a bad boss. Bubble Man really deserves more love. His design kinda sucks and he's a bit of a spender who wastes his money, but in this case he spent it on good necessary items. Not to mention, he's got a bubbly, sparkling personality. His facility is at the bottom of a large waterfall, where he's got claws, Kerogs, Tanishis, and the first mini-boss in the form of Anko, who spits shrinks at you. These workers might be brittle and not take long to take out, but they're absolutely thrilled to be working here, and fit the theme of the stage more than any other enemy. Bubble Man is a good boss. Heatman, on the other hand, lacks the work ethic and prefers to work at his own pace, which would be fine in other lines of work, but not in the business of killing Mega Man. His branch is located in some place deep underground. You can tell because of all the magma. He's hired Flyboys, Sniper Armors, Springers, and Tellies. Apart from the fact that the budget for this year's venture is much bigger due to almost everyone hiring Sniper Armors, Heatman made the wise yet lazy decision of hiring Tellies as their actual security robots. They can't do shit and are only capable of ramming into you, but they can quickly outnumber you 10 to 1. Flyboys, meanwhile, are limited in number, but they can surprise the target by jumping large distances and almost flying. Heatman may be lazy, but at least he's pretty smart about what he can do. He's a good boss. Woodman is another robot master who's a lot cooler than his design lets on. Sure, he's flammable, but that's really his only big weakness, apart from shark things. He also has a huge heart and loves nature and animals like a good American should. He's placed his business in a forest which also runs underground. He's hired quite a menagerie of robotic creatures, such as batons, cuckoos, monkings, peepees, rabbits, and the large and imposing Friender as a mini-boss in several places. All these workers are absolutely jazzed about working here. There's some place where they can thrive, stretch their legs, and get work done at their own time. Woodman is a very good boss. Airman is kind of a bore. He's one to talk about himself for long periods of time and condescend those who don't understand what he's talking about. But what he lacks in charisma, he makes up for in having one of the coolest places to work. Nowhere special, just several hundreds of miles high in the air. He's hired Pee-Pee once again, but now he's got goblins who spit out petite goblins. He's also hired Matasaburo and Kaminari Goro. They all seem to fit well here, and they're all placed in areas where they can't possibly fall to their doom, mostly because they can fly. Airman is the best boss. Crashman, however, is an entirely entirely different story. He's pretty chill and cool, obedient and doing what he can despite his clumsiness due to lack of hands. But he's also prone to incredibly violent mood swings and will chuck his crash bombs wherever he feels like it, which is fine because he likes destroying buildings, but not fine because he hates recycling. His location is a tall structure made of pipes, so tall it reaches into space a little bit. In fact, the only reason it's that tall in the structure being made of pipes is probably because Crashman wants to see something so huge come down with little effort once the job of killing Mega Man is done. However, he can't really do that as he's hired Blockies, PPs, Flyboys, Shopmen, Tellies, and the Neo Mets, who are upgraded to the old Mets. These are some pretty frail guys apart from the Flyboys, and not counting Neo Mets, they're all from other locations. Crashman didn't care about his mission so much that he just borrowed what was left over and spent all his budget on this eyesore of a stage. Because of his lack of care, violent mood swings, and the fact that he's a generally bad businessman, Crashman is the worst boss. Mega Man 3 has the Monsteropolis Corporation combined with the Light Robotics Foundation to create a conglomerate in the form of the Gamma Mining Company. Because of this, 8 new branches had to be built in various locations, like outer space, to mine minerals and ores to create the peacekeeping robot Gamma. Then they went rogue, because of course they did. Let's meet these fine gentlemen. Magnet Man is the kind of leader that you look at him and know exactly what he's about. He's got a magnetic personality and has good management skills, but he's inflexible, has no sense of direction, and tends to ruin things he touches due to his magnetic ability, and also the fact that he's clumsy. He's stationed in a facility that has a lot of magnets and electricity, probably because it's his element. He's hired the Springer's big brother, Big Springers. Shopman underwent some training and now he's new Shopman. Magflies fly about, patrolling like good security bots, and Peter Cheese stroll about, new and not so sure about what to do. It's important to note that from this point on, very few Robot Masters hire guys that don't seem to be out of their depth and don't really belong. Those guys exist, but they're fewer and more far between than last time. Anyway, Magnet Man is good at managing his resources, yet he's hired both really cool guys and some total goobers who seem to be doing the bare minimum. He's an okay boss. Hardman is what happens when you judge a book by his cover. You expect a big dude to be all brawn, no brain, but he's actually got average intelligence and is known to treat everyone as equal to him, including his enemies. His only real downside is that he's a man of few words and as such tends to keep to himself, even if he has important information. He set up base in a mountain, and also underground, like Big Brother Gutsman. And like Big Brother Gutsman, he's hired the Met DXs, which do the job fairly well. He's also got Monkings jumping around acting like little shits like actual monkeys. Along with them, there's a Pickaxe Man riding around in a bulldozer. Hammer Joe, who is just Sniper Joe, but who's got a little more buff since last time we saw him. Have Su Bees, who are just robot bees that sick their children on you. There's also Bicky. This dude has a dumb name and is pretty easy to take out. His only real redeeming trait is that he's big. Hardman is smart, but he's not a genius, and he knows it. So he does what he can when he can, and asks his workers to do the same. He's a good boss. Top Man is a cool dude, but that's both a blessing and a curse. He's a smooth operator, but also cocky. He can talk to Wily directly about plans, but he's also a little long-winded. He's on an alien planet. Why? Because he's good at mining ores on other planets. Duh. Anyway, he's in a jungle-type location, and he's hired Komasaburo to be a nuisance in tight corridors, Mechakero, who jump around and gets in your way, Met DXs to do their very best and get love and support, Pickaxe Men in their bulldozers, doing the best they can, but not like the Mets, and for the higher-ups, he's brought in Tamas, giant cats who do what most cats do, which is cough up hairballs and let their fleas and ticks do the heavy lifting. Tom Man is an okay boss because he's cool, but he doesn't really know what he's doing. Shadow Man should be a cool boss. He's a robot ninja. He can use actual ninjutsu, but he's incredibly shallow, impulsive, and unfortunately, it's exactly those thoughts that get in the way of him making good decisions. He's stationed in a facility that has a beautiful waterfall, but that's pretty much it. He saw his brothers getting some workers and decided that those would fit him and his aesthetic as well. Those guys are unfortunately New Shotman, the pickaxe guy with the bulldozer, Peter Chi, and Mekakero. Remember what I said earlier about these robot masters choosing what's right for them? Yeah, some of them don't know shit. He's got walking bombs, which are grenades with sentience. Grenades aren't ninja weapons. I mean, there are smoke bombs, but they don't look like fucking pineapples. He's also got parasus and yambos, which are fine, I guess. Ninjas were known in mythology to fly on gusts of wind with a cloth, and this is almost that in dragonflies? I guess. What's worth noting is that despite a lot of these guys going through the motions, a select few are very excited to be working here. The walking bombs are ready to charge at you and explode upon impact. The Patasus look determined to just crash your party slowly, and the Yambos, despite being dragonflies, still charge at you. In the end, Shadow Man has made more bad calls than good, but it's clear he's treating his workers well enough. He's an okay boss. Remember Elecman? Well, Sparkman is way cooler, apparently. To be fair, he's much friendlier to his brothers and will even help out with their problems and even give them a charge when they need it. Unfortunately, he's also pretty scatterbrained, forgetful, and doesn't focus his power in places where he needs to. This branch is a power plant because of course it is. And he's hired a few familiar faces. We know Peter Chi, Hammer Joe, and that goddamn pickaxe man and a bulldozer, but he's also brought in Elekins, who are very fitting of the theme and are very enthusiastic about working there. Sparkman is friendly, but maybe a little too friendly and can't properly see the vision of the company. So he's an okay boss. Snake Man is exactly what his name is. Kinda. He's tenacious, shrewd, intelligent, and likes the thrill of chasing an opponent to a corner before striking them down. But is he a good boss? I mean, I guess? He takes the whole snake motif to the most logical extreme, and his building is nothing but snakes on the walls, floors, and ceilings, and also the outside, I think. He's only hired one familiar face, the Hammer Joe, and everyone else is fresh. Or should I say, they're green? Anyway, these guys include bomb flyers, bubukans, dadas, a single jamasi, and patans. Quite the variety, but they don't really fit in except for big snakies, which are mini bosses, and petite snakies. They may not do much other than shoot you and move the ground, but they're still very memorable faces. For hiring people that seem pretty content working in a place that's almost all snakes, Snake Man is the best boss. Gemini Man is overconfident, conceited, self-centered, and just all-around prick. He likes looking at himself so much, he made his facility in the Arctic, in a cave full of ice and crystals, where he can see himself. It's entirely possible his employees take the job much more seriously than him. Well, maybe not the Poles, they seem more interested in attacking whoever disturbs their slumber, but they sure can't take a hit, the little babies. On the outside of the base, we got Nitrons and Bomber Pepes, who both seem pretty intent on doing their job proper. And inside, we once again see Mekakeros, Yambos, and Biki, but we also get to meet Pen Pen and the Pen Pen Maker, and Gyoraibo. Despite their appearances, they all seem to know they've got a bad boss and are trying to pick up the slack. Gemini is indeed the worst boss, but he's hired some pretty good people. Needleman is intelligent and good at fighting, but that's all he's got working for him. He wants so desperately to be loved by others, by his brothers, by his creators, but his prickly exterior keeps people away. He's felt so isolated for so long that he's developed both a complex about it and his personality has turned sour because of it. He pushes people away not out of fear that he'll hurt them, but because he knows he will. It's not in his nature, it's just something that happens, and he can't stop it. Needleman has to live with this, unable to give someone a handshake or even a smile, because he's so full of anger and he's got nothing else left. So he set up base in a mining facility outside a city, almost like he wants to be close to people, anyone, as he possibly could without hurting them. He's hired Bicky, Hammer Joe, Yambos, but he's also got Howdy Harry hanging out, a poor guy who's got a similar situation to his boss. Perhaps if they really got to know each other, they wouldn't feel so isolated and want to rebel against the company. Maybe they can finally make friends with someone who knows what it's like to be so alone. So Needleman is a good boss. After the fall of the Monsteropolis Corporation, things seemed to be pretty quiet for a while before the Cossack Company decided to take their place as the robotics taking over the world company. Like Wiley, Dr. Cossack also opened up 8 branches for his most trusted associates. Toadman was known for being able to irrigate crops jumping high and not much else, so he's pretty boring. His facility is smack dab in the middle of a sewer. Fittingly enough, he's hired some guys who live inside and outside of a sewer, like Gyotot, Rakasser, Raton, Swallone, and the mini-boss Escarou. They're all pretty enthusiastic about working in a dank, gross sewer. Even Escarou pulls his weight as a mini-boss. Toadman would almost be a good boss had it not been for his terrible taste in location. He's an okay boss. Brightman is a genius who thinks lightning fast and is almost always inventing something in his spare time. But he's talking so much for so long, he tends to bore his colleagues, especially when he goes on and on about how much he doesn't like red light districts. What a virgin. He's stationed in a power plant, because of course he is. He's hired the 100 Wattons and Dompans, who enjoy turning off the lights and turning them back on. Gachapons, who don't move and are only interested in shooting dangerous prizes at you. Minoan, who sneaks up on you and gives you only a moment to attack before charging at you like he's got a New York minute to spare. And Totem Polems, who are totem poles, but they shoot shit at you. That's it. These guys don't really fit in, but at least they're trying to impress Brightman. But he's an okay boss.
55 BC. Protection for the new rap scene. They're hanging by the Frisco Bay. Protectors of the world today. Go.
Pharaoh Man is a charismatic leader who apparently had over 1,000 workers under his employ who love him, but he's also afraid of beautiful women and hates Tomb Raider. Probably because Lara Croft is too hot. Anyway, he's hired Batontons, Hey-Heys, Mamiras, these guys who have dumb names, so I'm gonna call them Scorponox, and Taketentos, who all hang out underneath a desert in a pyramid. Pharaoh Man knows how to properly make things work for him and his employees. He's a very good boss. Ringman is one of the more odd cases in Mega Man 4. He's a very good strategist, but he's also pretty ruthless and shows no mercy to his opponents, which makes him a very good businessman, but also kind of a shit person. He's stationed somewhere. It's hard to properly describe what it is. I guess it's the Rainbow Factory from The Amazing World of Gumball. He's hired some weird guys who fit in and don't at the same time. He's got Rings and Whopper, who are perfect for this location, but he's also got Mono Rotors and the fucking Kabatonkyu. Why does this Ring guy have a fucking hippo on a pedestal? He just sits there and spits shit out at you. Ringman clearly has no idea what he's doing. He gets an F and is a bad boss. Dustman is a lot of things. He's a vacuum cleaner. He's good at his job despite being overzealous and sucking up more than he can handle. He's someone who suffers from halitosis, but none of that matters. Nothing really matters about Dustman other than the fact that he's a fucking cannibal! He works in a scrap heap and specializes in sucking up metal scraps from dead robots. It doesn't matter that he's hired some new faces and familiar faces. This guy eats the corpses of dead robots. Bad boss. Worst boss. Skullman doesn't fare as badly as Dustman, but he's still not great. He's only really good at fighting and a strategist, just like Ringman, but unlike him, he's incredibly awkward and tends to scare people away by being so morbid and his bad taste in, well, a lot of things. But he does like horror movies, which is probably why he set up shop in a robot boneyard. Skullman is also really painstaking when it comes to making decisions, which makes sense considering he almost has the most fitting group of robots working for him. He's got Skeleton Joes, who are a little lame when compared to their older brothers Sniper and Hammer, Batontons because
it's spooky,
I'm Worms because worms get on rotting corpses, and Skullmets because skulls. They're all used to great effect, as are shield attackers and Togekiros, which is a shame because they stick out like sore thumbs. Skullman, all in all, is an okay boss. Dive Man should be a cool guy. He's a big submarine guy and is very much against pirates. But because he's specifically a submarine and works better underwater, he gets motion sickness easily. This wet warrior is stationed in some sort of nuclear facility, while the water keeps the fuel rods cool, I guess. He's got quite the gang of aquatic allies, like the mini-boss Moby, some Gyotots, some Jumbigs, some Mantants, and a few swimming Mets doing their best. Given the weird gravity and the floatiness, they work really well in this environment despite only getting in the way. Dive Man, like other captains in the Navy, is honorable and knows how to pick the right crew. He's a good boss. Drill Man is what happens when you enjoy your job a little too much. He likes digging and drilling for the job so much that he's often reckless with it. When he's not discovering gold mines and hot springs, he's almost always hitting gas pipes. At least he's in yet another mining facility where there's Betontons, Helipons, Zumjumbigs, Met EXs, Mono Rotors, and Taketentos running around helping out as much as they can, which isn't that much. Drillman's an okay boss. After it turned out that the Cossack company was just a sock puppet company that was still owned by Dr. Wily because, who could have figured? It seemed that the Monsteropolis Corporation was dead forever until Proto Products Limited decided to buy up all the assets once everything went belly up. Now with someone new in charge, here comes 8 new branches all led by a cool, tubular, radical dude. How do we know Proto Man is cool, tubular, and radical? Well, Starman is stationed in space! Not in an alien world, just space. Sure, it's actually a space station floating above Earth, but still, he's hired some space station guys to help around the office, like bounders, dachshunds, missiles, space mets, and toss machines. Starman himself is a robot after my own heart. Romantic, emotional, sentimental, and dreams of exploring space with a love of his own. Does that make him a good boss? Not necessarily, but hiring the right people to defend a space station in space does. Starman is a good boss. Gravity Man is almost the exact opposite of Starman. He's a researcher who's diligent and has no time for romance, let alone social events. He loves gravity, so he's staying far away from space, and he's stationed in a gravity research facility. This dude fucking hates space. He's hired Nobitas, the Power Muscler, Pukapellis, and Susie G's. This place kinda sucks, to be honest. Just a bunch of areas where gravity switches around. Gravity Man is an okay boss. Whatever. Gyro Man kinda sucks. He's prideful, looks down at people. He's tried to take over a hanging garden and embezzle the ticket funds, but people just stopped coming. At least this hanging garden is nice, even if there's not much garden to look at. He's hired Kakos and Korokoros, Kukurkyus, a Power Muscler, Pukapellis, and Tatepakans. The place he's got his employees working at, while nice to look at and be in, is pretty dangerous, with drops into the open sky and elevators that have spikes ready to crush you. Gyro Man is kind of a bad boss. Crystal Man is kinda shady. He's got this mystical air around him. But because he keeps to himself, it's hard to trust him, especially since he himself hates science and likes fortune telling and crystal balls. He's stationed in some kind of crystal cave he probably created himself. He's hired Bombeers, Camons, yet another cousin of the Sniper Joe who likes crystals a lot, Kujins, Mausubeos, new shield attackers, a Power Muscler, and Puckapuckers. His cave is actually really impressive looking, even if he's haphazard with his materials, like dropping crystals. He's an okay boss. Napalm Man is a literal walking weapon, which makes people nervous, but he's also very diplomatic, loyal, and just loves weapons. He even built his own weapon museum, which no one visited. He's stationed specifically in Vietnam, which is worrying for historical reasons. He's hired bomb thrones, cannon mets, robot tigers, missiles, tabons, Hudons, Apache Joes, and a power muscler. His area, despite being uniquely historical, is actually quite dangerous for that very same reason. Napalm Man means well, but he's using his knowledge of warfare from many years ago almost a little too well. He's an okay boss for being smart, but insensitive. Stoneman already gets some brownie points because he's good friends with Gutsman, America's sweetheart, but he's also genuinely pretty kind. He likes good movies, long walks with a nice oil drink, and is strong-willed, albeit a little stubborn and disliking of stingy people. He's stationed not in a mining facility, but specifically a very high, tall mountain. He's hired Met Mommies and their babies, Mosu Bales, Rock Thrones, Tatepakans, and Tabans. Not to rain on this dude's parade, but he's hired some goopers. Maybe he believes these are the best of the best. He's a good dude, but is he smart? Kinda. He's still a good boss regardless. Charge Man is a very odd case. For one, he's old not only because he's based on old school trains, but he's powered by coal and water like those trains too. He's really old fashioned in every sense of the word, as he likes telling old, boastful stories, he has a one-track mind, and he dislikes trendy fashions and rail sign written specifically in katakana, the racist. Anyway, he works in a train because of course he would. He's hired bomb thrones, the chickens and their babies, Met K1000s, which are basically just Mets in a train, Mosu Bales, Rembakuns, Tabans, and Udons. I gave Charge Man a train out of 10, and he's a bad boss for being behind the times and working in a cramped space. Wave Man is difficult to be around. Not only is he prone to mood swings from bawling to unbridled rage, but he's also personally antisocial and will probably talk about how he fucking hates pollution. He's stationed in a dam where he's hired Irukans, Rider Joes, V's, and the only higher up he trusts, Octoper OA. Despite being a very hands-off boss who'd rather not get involved with his workers, he's hired literally only 4 types of people whom he trusts more than anyone else. This guy works smarter, not harder. He's a good boss, even if he could stand to take a chill pill. And the last one of these guys trying to take over Monsteropolis is a dude named Mr. X, who is the CEO of what I'm calling Creaturetopia. What's unique about this business, other than nothing at all, is that Mr. X has hired robots who were originally designed to fight each other. It's sort of like if Goldman Sachs hired a bunch of MMA fighters and WWE wrestlers. What's pretty cool about these guys is that they all have a nation of origin and are located in those nations somewhere. Let's go see them. Flame Man is from the Middle East and is stationed in an oil field. Already some burning hot red flags. But Flame Man is at least cautious. He's punctual, changes his oil 3 times a day, but his specific routine has made him demanding. He has a sports turban and likes taking care of his mustache. He is, however, pretty fussy and demands only the best in any situation, whether it be using the best oil or using what he believes are the best employees. Those employees are fire boys, fire tellies, Mets, and pookers. The fact that he set up shop in an oil field and hired a bunch of dudes who can set the oil on fire is both pretty reckless and also a genuinely galaxy-brained move. Flame Man is a good boss. Lizard Man hails from an artificial frozen island off the coast of the Great Wide North. Good old Canada, eh? Unfortunately, unlike the stereotypical Canadian, he's very shoot first, ask questions later, and is really tough and shady because of it. Like actual Canadians. It's not all that bad. He's a good commentator and apparently got a job as a weatherman later on. Apart from that, he's hired some Ow Owls, God's gift to mankind. Hammer Joe's cousin Cannon Joe, Shield Attackers GTR, Curlingers, Tex, and Squidons acting as the higher-ups, despite being pretty lazy and not doing much. As much as these guys actually fit in and seem like they're the perfect guys for their jobs, none of them are really that proactive, and only seem to be working when Mega Man shows up. Except for Ow Ow, he could literally do nothing wrong. All in all, Blizzard Man's an okay boss, eh? Plant Man is from the ancient, forgotten land of Brazil.
Please come to Brazil.
Plant Man, like many people in other Robot Masters, is very sensitive and can be depressed very easily. Cheers, bro, I'll drink to that. But he also has an affinity with plant life, being able to actually communicate with them, like a weird fusion between Poison Ivy and Beachcomber. Look him up. Anyway, he basically asks Mega Man to come to Brazil and visits his forest, where he's hired Bata Batons, Gab Gyos, Heli Batons, Jet Batons, Power Slams acting as muscle, and Gorilla Tanks working in upper management with their iron fists that they cannot uncurl. Going with a wildlife theme of employees rather than a plant-based workforce is a pretty risky move for a guy who's all about plants. But then you realize that his facility is basically in the middle of the Amazon. Plant Man is a good boss and deserves to run his own botanical garden in peace. In the barren, desolate land of Nevada, Area 51 in particular, stands a lone warrior who destroys anything he deems as an injustice to robot kind. That warrior is Tomahawk Man. Alright, I'm gonna be for real, breaking character and everything. This design, this concept, it's a bit of a cultural mess. You know how people talk about cultural appropriation? Yeah, this is the kind of thing those people mean. Unless the robot is designed by a Native American who wanted to honor their heritage and their ancestors, this shit doesn't fly. It's a problem Capcom has with their racism. Other Japanese game companies do this, but Capcom is more guilty of it than others. I'm kind of making a big deal out of it, but it's how I really feel. Anyway, back to the video. Tomahawk Man for some reason decided to use mostly cowboy culture as an influence with the people he decided to hire. He's got the gunslinging Coltons, Thorns, spitting, Hotchkissing Mets, who are still doing their very best, even when being spat out of a big container. A Power Slammer, a Shield Attacker GTR, the Straggling Skullwalker, Shot Spewing Tex, and the Rip-Roaring Twin Rotor. Apart from those guys, there's nothing really stand out about Tomahawk Man, apart from the fact that his place is really gorgeous. He knew the best place to have a final showdown against a real evildoer. Or maybe he knew that he had become what he despised most and wanted to be punished. Maybe he decided to rid the world of one evildoer in particular. He knew that his sins would catch up to him, so he decided to stop running and let him come, but not without a fight. Tomahawk Man is a good boss. Yamato Man hails from, well, take a wild fucking guess, but apparently he sees an ancient Japanese castle and set up base in there, since it's known as the Impregnable Fortress. He's got what's called the Yamato Damashi, which basically means he's filled with the spirit of Japan, whatever that means. Seriously, it's kind of a nebulous definition, but it's generally good. He's also incredibly shy, bad with money, but full of virility. He's hired quite a lot of people, so let's make it quick. He's got Benkei's, Dashon Limited Editions, Gabgyos, Kantonbyons, Shigarakis, Spring-Faced Time Bombs, and techs with Shadow Yosuke acting as upper management. Yamato Man may have an honorable spirit, but he's not entirely smart with handling his resources. He's an okay boss. You know who is smart? Nightman. He's so smart, he's holed up in a castle in Germany, located in what's literally known as the capital of science. He's chivalrous and honorable, but he's also inflexible, has a single-track mind and hates dirty tricks, both implementing them and fighting someone who uses them. In this capital of science, he's got a few people running around such as Brain Breaks, Browns, Skull Walkers, and a Twin Rotor. This dude would be receiving a passing grade if it weren't for the fact that his workplace is filled to bursting with traps and hazards, similar to actual castles in medieval times. Because of that and the fact that he doesn't issue his workers hazard pay, Nightman is an okay boss. Centaur Man is the only robot master who's a quadruped. This doesn't mean anything, as he just teleports everywhere, but still. In this area that straddles the line between a normal water place and basically Atlantis but filled with robots, he's hired Choker-Os, Gapgyos, Pelicanus, Hookers, Squidons, submarine flyers. There's some hazards to working here, but it's all mitigated by the fact that everyone who works here can either swim or fly. As for Centaur Man, he's decisive and can make good decisions very quickly. However, he can sometimes think for too long, specifically about his past and regrets. Also, he's very interested in gambling, which makes sense considering he's gambling his success with having a legit recreation of Atlantis just out there in the world, easy to discover. Regardless, he's a good boss. Windman is from China, liberate Hong Kong, and has a mechanical tower built high into the sky. He's a good cook, loves kung fu movies, and practices martial arts. However, he's also just terrible at riding bikes and hates herbal medicines. He's hired only a few guys to keep an eye on the tower, which is raised high above the Chinese citizens. Hong Kong deserves freedom. Those people are Panditas, Power Slants, and Twin Rotors. Windman, despite the fact that he's a pretty swell dude, has slightly overestimated the fact that his employees can't actually fly. Power Slammer kinda can, but not exactly. Because of this, he's an okay boss.
解放香港
This is part 1 because holy shit did I try to bite off more than I could chew. Plus, I never actually finished the Mega Mans 9 and 11. I've never even touched 10. So I'll do that and get back to you at some point. This has been Rising Superstar, and I love you.